Buddy, what's up? Artie Shepherd here. Welcome to another episode of Age of Quarantine. Tonight, I have a very old friend of mine. Um, he is a very well-known producer. He's done probably many records that you know. I do not have everything in front of me, so we're going to talk about it and see how that goes. And he's also played in some pretty legendary bands, especially in the emo and hardcore scene. His name is Brian McTernan. Uh, and yeah, I did a record with him a couple of years ago. Um, and he runs a studio called Salad Days, which he has run for many, 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 many years. And he's going to join us soon here. I hope everybody's been enjoying the Age of Quarantine series. Usually every Wednesday, I am here. In the basement of a bar called South, right by my house, and I think Brian's going to join us right now. And things are happening. Things are happening. Hey, Dustin, how you doing, buddy? There
Hi.
we go. All right, that was way too easy.
Yes.
I'm so used to I'm so used to interviewing some older folk like myself who can't get their shit together with Instagram Live.
Yeah, I figured it out. Hi, Artie. What's up, dude?
Hi, Brian. How you doing, man?
Great.
Yeah.
Good. Yes.
Are you in the studio as we speak?
No, I'm in my home studio as we speak.
Yes. All right. Nice. How you been, man?
I've been good, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm all right, man. Just fucking living, trying to at least. They're just imposing more shit on us here in New York again, so
No, it's so fucked up.
kind of dealing with that. But yeah, we'll get through it like anything else. Anybody you healthy and okay?
Yeah, man. Just like it's a fucking weird time, man. It's like, it's like putting a record out like for the first time in like 20 whatever years, and then like not being able to play, and like I don't know, but if you know this, but my wife Minu hasn't worked in 2 years because she's like a federal whistleblower
Yeah.
and had to testify in front of Congress a bunch of times. And hopefully, this Trump being gone shit will get resolved. But it's just been, we've been in like, it's just fucked up, man.
Wow, man. I mean, I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm glad to hear she's doing the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, she's much braver than I am. I mean, I think that I wouldn't have done what she did, but I mean, she's a badass, and it looks like it's going to get sorted in a positive way.
Yeah.
And it was already kind of looking that way pre-election, and I think that the election will only make it better.
Well, that's good. Hopefully she'll get back to work. And I mean, I know she's got some fancy degrees to fucking use. So
I mean, the sad thing about it is, I mean, I don't know how much you know about what she does, but she runs a methadone clinic at the VA hospital. I mean,
yes.
so she has people that really need her, and it's like she's sitting at home for 2 years, almost. It'll be
That sucks.
a year and 7 months.
Well, I mean, hopefully that'll get worked out soon, man. It's interesting you brought up like putting out a record at this time. Like, I actually think the Be Well record is perfect for what's going on right now.
Could be.
So for people who don't know, Brian's latest venture into music, which is the first time in many years, is a band called Be Well, which has gotten many, many accolades. And yeah, the lyrics are really, really, really good. And we can get into it later about your struggles in life and whatnot.
Sure.
But I was moved by quite a bit of it, and I didn't hear the record obviously until after this all went down. So it was very, I've been having my own breakdowns,
Yeah.
to say the least,
Yeah.
and not the good ones you can mosh to.
Well, you'd be surprised what you can mosh to.
Yeah, I know. Well, just look at the early '90s. Fuck. So so Brian. Also, for anybody who might not know, Brian is also a world-renowned, incredible producer. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that to start.
Sure.
So, going back to Ashes, was Ashes your first band?
No, actually, Battery was my first band.
Okay.
And we played only like, we played our first show when I was in 8th grade with Sick of It All. And,
Okay.
and
Okay.
then,
Let's
and then
rewind. Wait, that's fucking crazy.
yeah.
So I know Battery was a band that existed throughout the '90s, sort of like on and off and whatnot. But so how the fuck did you get into hardcore and become a singer by 8th grade?
Well, so I mean, the short version is I have an older brother. I think you probably know, sings in Damnation.
Image D. Yeah.
Always into music, and he had some older friends that got us into first new wave and then punk, and then we had a neighbor that was like this skinhead dude from New Zealand. His parents were like the diplomats, and my parents loved him, and he started taking us to shows when I was like 10.
Wow.
So
Okay.
my first show was Uniform Choice, Soulside, and the Flaming Lips.
Oh wow. Okay.
At
How'd the Flaming Lips go over on that one?
Everybody sat down. They opened.
That's awesome. So that was in Maryland, right?
Yeah, that was DC. Yeah. So
DC.
so then that whole summer after I went to that show, we went to like every show, and there was like this real badass skinhead dude, and he'd like put me on his shoulders and like go take me in the circle pit, and then it ended up being that I ended up going to a new school, and his sister went there, and we started dating, and he played drums in a band called Strength in Numbers with Ken Oldham from Damnation and Battery and all that. And I would go to her house after school, starting in 6th and 7th grade, and watch them rehearse, watch them write songs. And then Ken was like, "Hey, I have a straight edge band I'm working on if you want to come watch us rehearse." So on Fridays, he'd pick me up at middle school. We'd go to his house, and I'd watch them write, and they couldn't find a singer. So I started singing at practice. And then they went to do a demo to get a singer. And the producer of the engineer was Barrett Jones, who did the first Foo Fighters record.
Oh wow!
In his little 8-track thing, and he was like, "Why don't you just go sing on it, and I'll bounce it for him? Not bounce it. I'll mix it for him with and without vocals." Okay. So I sang on it. It came out great. I gave the demo to the promoter at the Safari Club, and he put us on the show. And then I like totally lost my fucking mind. The band broke up. I ended up getting like really into graffiti and hanging out with some pretty crazy kids. Started getting in a lot of like fights and stealing spray paint, getting arrested a lot, and ended up in a mental hospital for a period of time. And that's when I learned to play guitar. So when I got out of the hospital, I ended up bumping into, the short version is I ended up meeting Matt Squire.
Of course.
Also a legend, multi-platinum. And like we were at the Fugazi show on the mall, and we went back to his house. He wanted me to maybe sing in his band. And the music was like, I didn't know how to sing over stuff like that. So I said, I'll play guitar. And that was Ashes. I mean, that was the beginning of Ashes. That was Rise. We played 3 shows, and then our bass player got struck by lightning and died.
I'm sorry to laugh, but that's crazy.
No, it's fucked up. It was so
wow.
fucked up. And,
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it was crazy. And actually, he was a fucking awesome guy. And the way that I met him and Matt was actually really fucking crazy, because the drummer from Damnation and I had stolen a car, and we got.
Wait. Can I ask you a question? Were you straight at this point?
I was straight edge, thankfully.
Because of course you stole a fucking car. All straight edge kids are fucked up. They're all fucked up.
So the fucking crazy thing was, we stole this car because when I got out of the hospital, like, I wasn't in school. They were trying to figure out what I was going to do. So we stole this car. We get pulled over. Dave, the drummer from Damnation, tells the cop, we were both 13 or 14. So he tells the cop he's his brother. The cop doesn't believe him. So it says, I'm towing the car. You guys walk home. So this is pre-cell phone, pre-whatever.
Yeah.
And Dave's like, well, I know this kid, Noah, that lives pretty close. So we walk to his house, and rang the bell at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And that's how I met Noah, who then introduced me to Matt. And then Noah died.
Right.
And we then reformed as Ashes. So,
Wow.
so that was, yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. I mean, yeah, and I saw Ash. I played with Ashes many times, but I saw you guys so many times, and it was like, so for some reason, it was always at like these big shows, like these shows that had like fucking 200 bands on it or some shit. It was like super weird.
That's how everything was back then, right?
Yeah, it was like you played the Dayton Straight Edge Fest, so
yeah, dude, that was the More Than Music Fest.
More Than Music,
that was like the best. That was like my favorite show of my life, and I met so many people. That was a really crazy show because we didn't expect anything, and all of a sudden we're setting up, and everybody starts packing.
Yeah, I remember it, man.
And it was like people are singing along, people are crying. It was like very intense. And the cool thing was we didn't really like. I think I was 16 then. Like, we were so fucking young. The first time Ashes toured, I was 15, and we flew out to California. We couldn't even drive. So, like, we're getting driven by our record label guy to all these shows. And that's wild. It was wild.
Dude, that more than, I remember you guys going on, and everybody, like, it was like 600 kids there. And like, I mean, I was there with Bad Trip, and Bad Trip was the only band that drank at that thing. I said maybe Into Another, but that was so fucking funny. Like, I remember getting on stage, and there like Tyler King was pouring 40s over our heads, and we were like, and all these kids are just sitting there like this,
right,
like shaking their heads, and we were like, what the fuck? I was like, you guys should be Phil Lucky. You saw Avail today, you saw Lincoln today, you saw Hoover today. You saw, I mean, the fucking lineup. Oh my god,
Lincoln at that show
was awesome.
My mind.
Awesome.
Lincoln and Split Lip were both like,
yes.
I was just like, holy fuck, this is.
Dude, the best part about that show too is that Earth Crisis went on first on the show we played. So the night show, Earth Crisis went on first, and they like trucked all these kids in from Syracuse, and people and it was before, like, you know, they were a thing. I bought their first. I bought the Conviction 7-inch, Conviction Record 7-inch at that show, and yeah, fucking kids were throwing hamburgers at them. I remember this vividly, which was fucking hysterical because I was like, "This is a straight edge fest."
First time I heard Earth Crisis was there. Yeah, that was fucking crazy. That was crazy. And then I believe that we drove in 2 cars there, and on our way back, my friend Ian was riding with Matt Squire, and they fell asleep and flipped their car.
Oh shit, that's crazy because we hit black ice and spun.
Yeah,
on Route 80 of Philly. Yeah,
like treacherous,
dude.
Crazy. Yeah, that was. I mean, all we had at that time was a demo, too. I mean, that was like.
Wow.
That era was just so cool. Like, yeah. Anyway,
I might have even bought that because I did a radio show at Hofstra University at that time. So I would just scour everything, buy it all, and bring it back and play it. And I do remember playing Ashes, and it was a cassette, which is a total pain in the ass as a DJ. Yeah. But I did it. You know, you had to. It was a hardcore show, whatever. Yeah. But I mean, Ashes was definitely on the. I mean, you know, you had Battery, which was like the real fucking heavy hardcore shit. Yeah. Ashes was much more looked at as an emo band or like a proto emo band.
Like, I would have definitely called it an emo. I mean, I don't really think of emo as like that. Like, I grew up loving emo, so that wasn't a bad word.
Yeah. So with Ashes, at this point, you're still in DC, right?
In DC, yeah.
So you get to when do you end up in Boston?
So, like, we thought Ashes, things were actually going really well with Ashes, and we thought that we would try and keep the band together when they all went to college. I dropped out of high school, and they like Matt went to BU, and then Elena went to Brown, and our bass player went to NYU, and we thought we would keep the band going. I think we played like 2 or 3 more shows. So
everybody was just annoyingly smart, Bri. Like, what the fuck?
Well, so like my wife at the time was also going to school in Boston. So it was like it just was like, it felt like it made sense. And then I thought, oh, I'll open a recording studio. And so I moved into a house up in Boston with like, was a Trey from Death Wish, Ben, the bass player from 10 Yard Fight, Sweet Pete, the Pete from Mouthpiece, and this woman Liz. And I literally like I lived in the dining room on a mattress on the floor, and in the cellar had my little studio. And that's, I mean, that first year I recorded, oh my God, Cast Iron Hike, Texas Is the Reason, Converge, Cave In, Bane, I mean, 108. Like, I mean,
So
I
wait,
had no
had you had any studio experience up to that
Yeah,
point?
well, so I had, yeah, Matt Squire had an 8-track in his basement from like 9th grade on. So we literally just recorded all the time. And he, in Ashes, Matt was like the recording guy. And then in Battery, Ken was the recording guy. But then the last 2 songs Ashes recorded, we went to Atlanta to do it, and Matt had to leave. So that was the first time I like sat up at the console and like, and I was like, fuck, this is it, man. This is, I mean, you know that feeling of like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
pushing
you fell in love
Vader,
with it.
the guitar coming up. You know what I mean? It's like, it was just like, wow. And then I was just like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do with my life. And then like, that was it. I mean, you know, like I'm a scrappy hardcore kid. It's like, you want to do something, you just
Do it.
do it.
Yeah.
I mean, wasn't smart enough to know it was a bad idea and it probably wouldn't work out. And then I was lucky enough that it did.
Well, it's interesting. You were also lucky enough to have a plethora of talent in Boston to record, which
Right.
was probably pretty helpful. You know that like you were friends with those people that were willing to come and record with you.
Well, the cool thing was, I mean, I think I was charging $10 an hour, if that. And a lot of the things that really like the Cast Iron Hike, the first EP that I did with them, and the Texas Is the Reason first EP, were both things that were never intended to come out. It was both like, we'll do these demos with this kid, and then we'll go record for real with someone else. And then they both came out awesome. And the funny thing with the Texas Is the Reason thing was, we never even really mixed it. Like, I woke up in the morning and like just ran it off for them. And then a couple weeks later, I get a call from Jordan from Revelation, like, "Hey, I need the master and master files."
Wow.
This is the reason. I'm like, "What the fuck?" I mean, first of all, it was Revelation, and that fucking blew my mind because I mean, I think I bought every record
Yeah.
on Revelation for 10 years maybe.
It's fucking yeah. But yeah. I mean, it's just a sign of the times that I mean, to your credit, you were probably mixing the whole time you were doing it. So you know, it probably sounded really. I mean,
I
rough
mean,
mixes often do sound better.
the
You
thing
know.
is, they were a great band that played awesome and had great songs. So it's like, as long as you're like, I didn't have enough gear to do anything really wrong. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so it was just like the right environment, I think, for them at the time, and like low pressure situation. And like, I knew I was influenced by the same things that they were influenced by. And I think that for me early on, I think that was the secret weapon, which was like when Ashes would go to the studio, we'd have to bring records to play for the engineer. Like, this is what it's supposed to sound like. Where I didn't have the experience that an engineer like that would have, but I grew up listening to all the same shit everybody that was coming in. I knew what it was supposed to be. And the thing about that time was studios were really expensive. So to be able to go and record your demo or your 7-inch or whatever with some dude that like gets who you are for $10 an hour, it's pretty like, was a good situation. And a lot of people like just gave me a shot. And then it really was the first band that like came to me that like, it was like, hey, we're on the label and we have a budget and we want to record this with you, was 108, Threefold Misery.
Yeah.
And that I mean, again, you know, you're great players, great writers, great people with good taste and experience. I mean, you kind of have to get out of the way in
Well,
that
I mean,
sense.
where did you find that you were? Because I've worked with you and as a producer, and I really enjoyed your. I mean, this is years obviously from the '90s. This is like what 4 or 5 years ago, and but you honed your skills at that point as a producer. But I liked your style. I just liked the way. I mean, granted, we'd known each other for a long time, but and you knew Jason and you knew Nelty, so it was easy rapport. But I liked your style of comments.
Right.
Like it was done in a tasteful way that was encouraging and not as any producer should be. And did you find yourself when you were doing those records in the '90s? Were you telling these guys like, "Oh no, that take wasn't good. Do another one," or were you just letting them fucking go?
No, I was involved. I mean, like early on, I I think I made up for my lack of kind of technical experience with passion about the performances and the songs themselves, and
Okay.
and like love of the people involved. You know what I mean? All the people we're talking about, then the people I was working with were such awesome, inspiring people that it was like respecting the artistry of it goes a long way as well.
Yeah,
So
I mean, you did a wide variety of bands too. I mean, you were doing like metal, hardcore, indie. Like it's when I took a look at your full discography, and it's like it's pretty impressive. You were working constantly.
yeah, like seven. I mean, like 10, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for like 10 years, pretty much.
Jesus. So when do we get to Milltown, and when do you get out of your basement?
So at the end of the first year I was in Boston, I ended up getting a storefront that my wife and I built the studio in, which was almost ended our relationship. But and I lived there, and so I was recording a ton, and then it kind of became clear that Ashes wasn't going to happen, and Matt and I had been writing a bunch, and then someone suggested Jonah Jenkins from Only Living Witness was looking to do something new, and I had met him. He had been to the studio a couple times, and we ended up talking, and that was the beginning of
Yeah,
Milton.
he was like a Boston superstar at that
Yeah,
time.
I mean, he was amazing. But like
Fucking amazing.
the crazy
Uh,
thing with Milltown was, again, it was like we played, we like we recorded this demo. We had only played like 5 or 6 shows, and I was living with Jake Brennan from Cast Iron Hike at the time, and I think Cast Iron Hike was playing with Orange 9mm. And this sounds so crazy, but I thought maybe Mike Gitter would be there, and I gave the Milltown demo to Jake and said, if Mike Gitter happens, you bump into him, give this to him. I'd never met him. And the next day my phone rings and it's Mike Gitter, and he's like, hey, I got this.
hey, buddy. Hey. Yeah.
and then the next show we played, a whole bunch of labels were there, and it was the 90s. So it was like,
Yeah.
we flew out to LA and we did all this stuff. And then I think we signed to Giant, which was a subsidiary of Warner Brothers, like, I don't know, after like 8 or 9 shows. So,
Wow.
but I
Yeah.
mean, the funny thing is that era, that's when I met all the Sun Records guy, like Sam and Welter, and
Yeah.
because you at that time too.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's interesting. Well, we were in New York, so but yeah, that time was super weird, and like the. I mean, I think I remember playing with Milltown. Fuck, like upstairs at the Middle East,
oh yeah,
like
yeah.
fucking
Probably with 617.
yeah. It was definitely with 6107. Yeah, and there was a lot of fanfare happening, and it was fucking great. I mean, I had heard all the because I was really close with Josh, so I would
Right.
hear all the stuff that Josh English from 617 for people who don't know, which I could literally do an entire episode on Heartbreaks Got Backbeat if you
Yeah.
wanted to do that because it's like one of my favorite records of all time.
The funny thing about that record is that was the first record that I ever did where I would like went and worked with the guys in their, like, went to rehearsals and like got involved, you know.
Pre-pro, yeah, you did pre-pro with them.
You know
yeah.
what's fucking cool about that record is actually the sound guy for Thrice tunes the PA to that record
Oh, no
to
way.
this day. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
The bass is so fucking loud. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well, Josh is like, they did like, he's like the bass and the rhythm guitar all in.
Yeah, it's. I mean, he's the lead player in that band. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that must have been a really interesting record to record too, because like, it is really sonically different from any other band you would have recorded.
Yeah.
So I mean, but the bass tone that Josh would get, and it's probably another good example of you kind of going like, okay, Josh, just fucking play.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, the thing about all of that, like, I just learned, so, like, I was living with Josh at the time, and it was just like so inspiring to, like, you know, my roommates were, Jonah was living there, Josh English, Jake from Castor and Hike, and like, you sitting on the couch, everybody's tinkering on guitars, and you're just listening, and like, everything is so fucking rad.
Yeah,
you know what
that's
I mean?
fucking amazing.
It was so cool, and it was like, there was so much camaraderie, but also like, everybody was like upping their game, and everybody was like kind of rising together, I think, like artistically and professionally. It was
Yeah, I think that whole Boston scene. I mean, you know, you've recorded Converge and you've recorded Cave-In.
right.
Like, I mean, Cave-In to me, like on a talent level, was just through the fucking roof. I mean, I've become good friends with Brodsky over the past,
Yeah.
10 years since he's moved up to New York, and I mean, they do that 2 minutes to late night thing and whatnot, and Mutoid Man rehearsed for 2 years at St. Vitus.
Wow.
I mean, I would just be like, fucking my jaw on the ground every fucking day.
I mean, I will tell you, to this day, watching them record Cave in Jupiter was still the most magical experience I've ever had in my career. Like, nothing I don't think will ever, like, they recorded that fucking record all live together. All the effects, everything was live.
Wow.
And no overdub. I think there's one overdub of an acoustic guitar doubling a lead part. One. It's literally 2 guitars, one vocal. Even the like answer vocals on the record were done with like recording his voice into like my line 6 loop pedal and playing it back. Like that.
Wow.
Record, and a couple things about it. One, they're so fucking good, right? They're just like, they play, the songs are so fucking good, and like they were blowing beyond. I mean, Until Your Heart Stopped was exploding, and these guys just went, we're just gonna
get real weird. Yeah,
we're gonna get real weird, and like we don't give a fuck. Like, totally fearless, totally talented, best guys. And I think for me that was exciting about watching that. I mean, not just the trajectory to that point, but their trajectory as artists, period. It's the first time I recorded them. Like, I think I recorded their 7-inch or whatever. Steve's mom like called me, like, is it in a safe neighborhood? Like, dropped them off while they recorded and like waited at IHOP while we tracked.
Oh my God.
Like, so to see them become.
Yeah. I mean, they were destined for it, man. It's like, you can't be that good that young. And they were smart about it. They didn't turn into self-destructive crazy people, so it was, they could have very easily. It's interesting. Jupiter's a record that I vividly remember sitting in a parking lot of a Guitar Center in like Hop Hog on Long Island and playing it for the Aerotet guys. And I remember just like, I could literally see their minds be blown. They were just like, I don't understand how you write this. I was like, I took it out and I was just like, I'm going to play you a Yes record.
Yeah.
I'm going to play you a Genesis record. I was like, these guys are doing prog. You just don't expect it because you listen to fucking pop punk. Like, I'm telling you, this is.
But the cool thing is, then there's a lot of Beatles in there too, and then you know what I mean. Like, it's just Steve is just, he's one of a kind. I mean, they're all amazing, but like Steve in particular is like And then Caleb, like, you can't be that band without a bass player that's that good,
dude,
because
unreal. Yeah.
it's just fills the room. I mean,
That fucking tone, dude, that tone has never been equaled.
yeah,
You know, I know Nate's doing a good job right now. You know,
yeah,
it's like it,
he's
but it's
yeah.
fucking, yeah, it's massive, just fucking massive. I
Well,
mean,
the
you know.
crazy thing is, Milltown last year played with David. I don't know
Oh,
if you saw that.
I
We
didn't
did
see that. No.
yeah.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Was it a benefit for Caleb's family?
I don't know if it was a benefit. It was it was awesome though. I mean, it was like, the crazy thing is, Milltown ended in like a giant like.
Oh, let's. Oh, we
Bomb.
got to talk. We got to talk about it. We got to talk about it. Come on.
Well, Milltown ended like badly, right?
So but
And
you guys were signed. You guys were signed to a major label. You got the big budget. You were in. Did you go in with a big producer? Or were you guys
we
doing it yourself?
we went in with like the worst producer ever,
Oh,
and it's
name
so
names.
funny because it was this guy Toby Wright, and he's clear. I mean, he's a multi-platinum producer, so for some people he's the right guy, but like, it was the wrong guy for
Milltown. Yeah.
for Milltown.
Yeah.
And the record sucked. Like, he'd sucked all the life out of the band, and he didn't like me. Like, you know, like, I don't think he understood. Like, Matt and I have this great, always have had this great, like, yin and yang kind of balance together, where like our strengths and weaknesses kind of fill each other out really well. And he was like, loved Matt, couldn't get in down with me at all. And like, the, you know, we were like a high energy band, and like, he wanted to like take like the songs and strip them down and play them with the sitar, and it was like, it was just, we were making a terrible record. And the short version is that he, one day we came into the control room and he was leaving, and he left to go do the Corn record. And we were like, what the fuck? And then the label was actually cool. The label was like, look, we will pay for you to go start over with someone else, the right person. But you need more songs. We need some like singles. So, I mean, it's hard to explain the kind of like tension and pressure that going in to make a record that you think is going to be amazing and having turn out to be a total piece of shit, and then be like, okay, now write some hits, you know? So we like hold up in my studio, and we're trying to like write singles or whatever the fuck, and tensions flared. I'm not going to get into the gory details, but like a physical altercation transpired, and then literally some of us, from that day forward, the band was just over. Some of us never talked again until the last rehearsal before the Caven show 20 years
Wow.
later.
Wow.
So
I mean,
I literally just like moved back to DC and started over.
well, yeah. So you moved the studio, you moved everything back to DC at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's so, um, and you where what was your location? It wasn't where we were recorded with you,
No,
right?
no, no. So I had a bunch of spots. So at first, while I was trying to figure things out, I rented just a house, and it was like pretty like the control room was in the dining room and the drums went in the basement, and it was like the 2-inch tape machine was like sitting out in the living room. And but I mean, that little house that year, I mean, I did the first Movie Life record there. That's where we did a lot of Cave and Jupiter. I mean, I did the Frodis record there, Mile Marker, First Strike Anywhere I record, like a ton of cool shit in an 8-month span in that little house. And then I bought another house and built a big studio behind it, and that was and then I sold that to Matt Squire, and he's still there. And I built a new huge studio in Baltimore that isn't where you recorded either. And that was like a 6,000 square foot huge warehouse in Fells Point. And that was awesome for a while, but man, I mean, the overhead and
Yeah.
the budgets came way down and the real estate value had gone way up. So I sold that, and that's when I moved to the space that we did the Unwed stuff.
Are you still there?
No, no.
No. Moved again.
So,
Jesus Christ.
so I moved again. So actually, after the space there, I actually took a break from recording entirely.
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah.
For like 4 years. Yeah. I just wasn't in a good spot, and then I mean, you know, there's like, I think all the time about it's a huge responsibility to be in charge of a record, and I feel like if your heart's not in it, if you aren't 1,000% in, it's not fair to the bands. And
Wait, so can I ask you a question as a producer though? Like, you're bringing this up. Are there projects that you did that you either did for the money or you didn't really feel wholeheartedly? You don't come off. You've never come off to me as the type of person who wouldn't do something that you either really like the people or you really like the music. But
yeah,
was
I mean, that was that was always my that it was always like, it's got to be one or the other. I either have to love the people or love the music. But then the thing is, there are times when you're doing things, and like, I had a manager, and like, there are times when I'm not really getting to know people before they came in, and we entered an era of like people coming in not being able to play. You know what I mean?
and we
Like
talked about this actually. I'm not going
not
to bring up
having
band names, but like,
the, yeah,
yeah, that's an interesting thing because like with the technology when that changed, that was something that I think has become pretty common actually, at least a bunch of years back. I know in the metal scene, all these kids can play so fucking insane. It's like, whoa, what the fuck?
right.
But it's interesting as the technology changed, the talent kind of went down.
I mean, the preparation, the talent, and the passion. Like, I think that like with the with the with the combination of like the internet and like Pro Tools, like, the thirst for like constant content became like, people wanted records fast, and like they're touring all the time. And like, one of the things I think that's the saddest about, you see with bands, is you're not sometimes writing the songs because you love writing songs and you love doing it. It's because you need a record to tour. Like, the record are a tool for touring rather than like the thing that will live and breathe
Yeah,
forever.
right.
And like, I think that I became like, I got a reputation with labels as like, oh, we can send the problem people to Brian, like, or like, these songs need work, we'll send them to Brian, which I love. I mean, love working on songs, but I don't want to be sitting there and like writing songs for a band because they don't care enough to do it for themselves. You know what I mean? Like, and with that, like I was saying with Caven, watching that happen, the magic of it, I started to just feel like, man, I am so burnt out and what I'm giving up in my personal life, because like the lifestyle of being a record producer is hard. I mean, the hours are long, and like you go home and it's all on your mind, and you're just like, I mean, and my daughter was young, and I just felt like I I was 22 years or whatever it was into doing this like day in and day out, and I just needed a break. I just needed a break, and I felt good about that. I mean, the sad thing about it is that year. I mean, your session was great. Like, I did the Pink Angel Dust record that year, and that was
Oh
awesome.
yeah,
I
fucking
did
amazing.
Turnstile Nonstop Feeling that year, and that was awesome. And I did a Fireworks record that year, that was awesome. So I had these high points, but then the low points that I had that year were literally, I had bands coming in, and I'm literally sitting there writing the parts, playing the parts, like writing the lyrics, demoing the lyrics, and sending them to the singer to learn. Like, and I'm just like, I'm not interested. This doesn't.
Why be in a fucking band if you're gonna do that? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And I just felt like I need a break, and like I can't do this the way I want to do it right now. And I mean, the thing is, I think that there were probably like less nuclear decisions than being like, okay, I'm closing up shop. I'm going to get a job like for a construction company. but everything I do 1,000%. So like once I made that decision, it was like, dude, all right.
What did you do? What'd you do?
So I ended up taking a job. Okay, so I won't get too deep into it, but like the back story is from the very first studio I built, I always loved building things. Like I love architecture. I just, it scratches a lot of the same itches for me that like music does. And I had gotten into like, I don't want to say flipping houses, but like buying houses and fixing them up and selling them and like renovating our houses. So I thought, oh, I love doing this. Maybe I'll get a job doing this. So I took a job as a project manager for a construction company. And then, you know, I approached it like I approached everything. And like 6 months later, I was the COO of this big multi-million-dollar company. And I did everything I could to try and make it rewarding. But I mean, I think a lot of things came along with that I hadn't anticipated, which is my whole life, not just me, everybody in my family has struggled with mental health issues. And when I was making records, I think that there was a combination of like so much stimulation that I was able to keep it at bay, and also like being around people like you and Jason and Nelty and like, you know, people that I enjoyed the company of all the time to keep it at bay. And then all of a sudden, I didn't have any of that in my life anymore. And all of a sudden, I'm like working with people that I don't like, and I'm alone all the time, driving from site to site to site, hours every day, and all the shit that was buried deep inside that like I kind of never really like allowed myself to process really bubbled up, and I really had no escape. And so the sad thing about it was that one of the reasons that I decided to like stop making music was that I felt like it would allow me to be closer to my family. In all actuality, I would come home every night. I was so fucking miserable that I I just drank or did anything I could to avoid any sort of feeling at all.
Yeah, well, you couldn't be in the moment because
I couldn't be in the moment, and like all my energy was like kind of put into trying to avoid what was kind of like simmering inside of me. And I mean, it was, you know, it was the darkest time in my life by a lot. I mean, it was very, it's like I can look at it now and be like, wow, you know, I got through it, or you know, whatever. But it was pretty scary in some ways. And
so how'd you come out of it? Like what'd you wind up doing?
Well, so I mean, what ended up happening was the guys in Battery ended up pitching me on this idea of like, we got this offer to do a festival here and a festival in Europe. And I was kind of like, no, I don't want to do it, whatever. Nick really pushed me to do it. And honestly, man, just like having having a reason to like talk to people every day, and like having art to look at and having things to look forward to, I was just like, oh my God, like I can't, like it, like at first I had kind of like gotten into a routine of being able to numb everything that was going on. And at first, like just having that stimulation kind of made things worse. But like we ended up writing a song, and that was the first time I'd written something of my own thoughts in like 20 years, maybe. It literally like poured out of me. And I was just like, I remember my wife saying to me, like, whatever's happening right now, you need to just do, because you feel like more like yourself than I can remember you feeling. And I literally just said to myself, I am going to write something every day. I'm going to pick up the guitar. I'm going to write. Nope. I'm just going to start writing. And because it's, you realize it's really the only thing I know in the world, you know,
Right.
it's the only language I know. It's the only religion I know. And I just started writing. I was writing lyrics. I was writing riffs. I was writing things. And every day I just felt a little more like with it, but also I was able to like see how dark what I was writing was. And I
Yeah.
was able to realize like, I need to make some like, not just minor change. I need to make some serious fucking life change. Like I am, not only am I in a bad place, but I have a daughter that I'm responsible for. And I'm not only not being there for her, but I'm also setting the worst example because all I want for her is for her to be totally comfortable with herself. Well, me, I'm hiding everything about myself from everyone around me. And it's like eating me alive. And
Yeah.
like, not to be dramatic, but I mean, I just
No,
like,
no, dude, I completely fucking understand. And it's, I mean, I'm in a similar situation, and it's, it's amazing that you found some catharsis in writing, and, you know, feeling probably a feeling of accomplishment to a point,
yeah,
was is always nice where you can turn it off and then go, go do your thing with your daughter. I mean, did you ever get like professional help, or was it
I,
just
I didn't. I mean, you know, I mean, the thing about depression is, I mean, it's like I would love to tell you that, like, yeah, I wrote this record and I got through, and I'm great. You know what I mean? Like, I, I have found ways to cope with it, like re- trying to stay in better touch with people, trying to be less of, you know, like like walking and spending time with friends and running, and I have some coping mechanisms. I probably should at some point talk to somebody.
I mean, if you don't have to right now, it's okay.
I mean, you know, the thing is what it turned into, like I guess what I to sum up this little portion, the thing that's the most incredible thing about it is a lot of what was really bothering me about the things I was feeling, because none of it was like crazy or like yeah, was that I felt like nobody would understand and nobody would be able to relate, and I was the only person in the world that was having these feelings. And like I wrote this record. I actually had a lot of people say to me, "Are you sure you want to put this out? Like, are you sure you want this in the world? Your daughter's going to see it." And I just decided, like, I have to. And I was kind of fully prepared for people to not understand at all, but it's been the
Oh
total
no,
opposite.
wait,
I mean,
dude.
it's been incredible how many people have been like, dude, like, I feel so similarly. I'm at such a similar place in my life. And it just, it helps. Like, if you take the sense of like, I'm not gonna, like, the depression isn't going away, but the feeling of like total isolation has gone away. Like,
Right.
and that's through reconnecting with people like you and having people hear the record and like, right. I mean, the messages we've gotten from people about like how the record has affected them, especially like you said earlier, in these times, it's
Yeah.
been really incredible.
That's great, man. I mean, I know, glad. I'm sure that makes you feel even better about, it's everybody has their battles that they have to do, and it takes a lot of courage to fight it. It's funny. I was, as you were talking, I was thinking about like something I had said to my therapist recently about why I was seeking help, and I was reading Bruce Springsteen's autobiography, and who knew the boss had all these problems, but
Right.
he, like, his family suffered from mental illness as well, and in his 60s, he had, he had pretty, not young kids, but relatively young kids at that point. And he he had this moment where he was like, I'm not being the best I can for my kid. I'm not present for my wife. I'm like, I'm so wrapped up in my own shit that I can't be the person that I want to be for these other people.
Right.
And it's, he was trying hard to do it, but he wasn't doing it. He was just fucking doing bullshit for himself. You know what I mean? And like, but you have to work on yourself first, and then you can go and be in the moment. But it was like, it struck me. It was
Yeah.
like, yeah, man, like that's what I want. I want to, like, for me personally, like I had lost a lot of joy in the things that I love to do.
Right.
And like, especially like with my daughter, I wanted to like really play, like I've
Yeah.
never really played.
Yeah.
And it's so hard for me to do. I'm just like, oh man, I got a million other things to go do, and my head's so filled with anxiety that I can't like find the room to do that. And it's interesting, like that it was Bruce Springsteen who kind of like just put it on the fucking wall for me. I was like,
Yeah.
shit, you're right, dude.
That's so
You're
cool.
yeah, it's fucking. I mean, I suggest that autobiography for anybody who's
I will
interested.
definitely read that. And
It,
the other thing that came from the Be Well record that was awesome, really touching for me, is that you know this as a lifelong musician, is that the producer's role is to be like the steady hand. You know what I mean? Like and it's, I think that my whole like social network and community was band people, and I felt like, I never really ever felt comfortable sharing these kinds of things
yeah,
with my clients because I felt like I need to be the fearless leader
yeah.
here.
You didn't want to show weakness when you had
Yeah.
to, like hey man, I'm having problems.
And now what's so cool is like, I think like bands that have worked with me, I mean, I feared that they would not understand. And they're the outpouring of like love from these people that like I respect more than anything in the world, and love more than anything in the world, has been so touching. I mean, it's been really cool. And the other thing that's really cool is like my daughter is 13 now, and it's a really cool like like thing that we're sharing together. Like she was in the Be Well videos. She loves the band, and like just little things like she has her Be Well shirt, and my wife took her to Hot Topic, and the woman working at Hot Topic was like, "Oh, I love Be Well," and like she just got the biggest kick out of it ever. I mean, it was just it's cool to like, you know, that's like way cooler to me than like, you know, anything
Oh
else.
fuck yeah, dude. Fuck yeah. I mean, that's so great. And again, I think that she, I'm sure at 13 she understands, the lyrics and what they mean, and what, it's so not like you were saying, like you weren't being fair by not being true to yourself, like not, and that this gives her the opportunity to see all of that and interpret it in her own way.
Right,
She can be her own person and fucking interpret it how she wants.
right,
It's like, and at the end of the day, dude, like I feel like you've been that person your whole life. A lot of us have.
right,
You've been, I know with the producing and stuff, you've been running, 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 and never really stopping to think about any of it. But
right,
beyond that, like with your music, like a lot of us in the early '90s got into all this because we were fucked up.
right,
And I mean, I know personally with my first band, Monitor Matter, like I had such a strong connection with the guys in the band, especially the singer, and like he wrote a song called Therapy Session on our first album. It's like there was a lot of that sort of like, if we didn't have each other, we would just be a mess. And I feel like you've been doing that your whole career, regardless of like what you want to admit.
right,
It's been a catharsis. You've been opening yourself up to people,
right.
and they feel it. And whether you say the words or not, they feel it. And
Yeah,
that vulnerability is what gives you your advantage.
yeah,
Honestly, man, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
It's fucking beautiful. I'm really, really, really happy that you did this Be Well thing, and like I wish you guys could play live. I
Oh
know
yeah.
you did play a couple of shows, right?
Yeah, we played. That's the thing that we played a bunch of shows, and the one thing I'm happy about is we had our like our single release show in DC right before all hell broke loose, and it was like way oversold out, best vibe in the world, and I got like the first glimpse of, oh my god, this is what this could be like. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like all the shows we had played before that were like, you know, first to four, and that people are respectful, but it's way different than like your show packed.
yeah,
And I got the first. I'm like so thankful that we went into this pandemic with at least me having that like glimmer of like this still ahead.
yeah. I mean, have you felt? I know that I've actually had a lot of trouble being creative during this time. Have you felt it easy or?
I have been. I have. I have been. I feel like create productive. In that I've stayed on my. I'm gonna write something every day.
Oh, great.
I just committed to it and I've stayed with it. And I'm now in the process of going through literally like 300 ideas. And what I'm doing now is now I'm taking an idea, I'm scrolling through until I find something I like that I hear, and then I'm turning it into an actual song and totally.
Awesome, man.
And
And it
so I'm like,
is this for Be Well, or like do you
yeah,
know what it's going to be for?
yeah, and probably, I mean, you know, like I write with some other people too, so like who knows what it'll be. The thing is, I'm not. I'm really trying to stay focused on writing because I love music and not writing because I need a record. I feel
Well,
like that is. I make really bad decisions when when my motivation is not like.
but at the end of the day, dude, like I mean, does anybody really need to do a record right now? You know what I mean? It's like there's no there's the playing live is way off in the future, and if you're not doing it for yourself, this is the time to do it, man. If you're doing it, like
There's
if you're not doing it for yourself, like you don't fucking. This is not what I was gonna say. Is this is not the time to do it? You know what I mean? Like fucking
there is literally no drug for me like a new song. I mean, like
yeah,
nothing like. I just, I've never lost the love of like the ability to sit down and just create something that no one can ever take away. Like it's just very few people get to do that in the world, and I'm like the like after taking the break that I took. I mean, honestly, it was like the best thing I ever did because I came back to music like totally enamored, totally in love with it, totally like understanding what a loss in my life it was to have it be gone. So I'm just enjoying the fact that I'm inspired and I feel like it's magical and I feel like it helps me cope and helps me like not like totally like cave in on myself emotionally.
yeah, man. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's the basis of all of it. So like again, that Bruce Springsteen autobiography, he says that so much. It's like
I
if it
gotta
wasn't,
read that.
it's like it's on Audible if you would just want to listen to it. I listen to it, but it's like he says that very much, and it's like, and you totally get it. Like it's like it gave me a new perspective on Bruce Springsteen. I was like, yeah, man, like this guy's not like like you growing up in the '80s, you're like born in the USA and all this shit, and you just like dancing in the dark, and then you get older and you find Born to Run, and you're like,
Right.
holy shit, this is pretty good. But it never really like fucking clicked with me until I read what he had to say about it. And
Yeah.
he's a little bit wordy, but like but he's a writer, and that's what you do, So we gotta wrap it. We're at 1 minute here. Uh, thank you so much for doing this. It's
Thank
fucking
you for
great.
having me. What a treat.
And like when we're back up and running, we want Be Well to play at St. Vitus, dude.
I would love that. Okay, buddy.
We
All right.
fucking rule. Say hi to
All
your
right.
wife for me.
I
Cheers,
will.
man.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care, brother.